Welcome back to SOTA Pop Podcast. This is episode 9 of our season 2 of this podcast, and we have an amazing special guest. President Kitts is with us today. And so to kind of get to know you a little bit better, and also with our students that are listening in and other people around, where are you from, like your hometown?
Okay, so I grew up in the mountains of North Carolina in a little town called Waynesville. And my entire childhood was there until I went off to college, and my undergraduate experience was Appalachian State, which is also in the mountains of North Carolina, about 2 hours away from my hometown.
Mm-hmm. And so, and you've been here at UNA how many years?
I'm in my 5th year at UNA. I've started in the spring of 2015.
Mm-hmm. And I know that your anniversary for your being inducted into this position is actually coming up. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I started on March 30. So next spring will mark my 5th year anniversary here.
Mm-hmm. It's really cool because when you were actually voted by the committee that picks that search for the president, you were actually unanimously voted in, which is really cool. Because that's great. There's 8 people who voted yes and no people who voted no.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool too.
Which is a really big thing. So speaking of your time in college, you actually have 3 degrees. You have actually all 3 of them are in political science, correct?
That's correct.
And you've already, you said you were at Appalachian State and South Carolina as well. And then I know you also have what is this? It says postgraduate certificate from Harvard University's Institute for Educational Management.
Yeah.
So what exactly is that certificate? Because it's not something that I've heard of before. So what is it?
Sure. So my 3 degrees mean that I'm a professor by training, professor of political science, and I've been in higher education, give or take, about 30 years. And about half of that time was just as a teaching faculty member, teaching professor. And then I got into administration, department chair. I was associate provost at different schools for a number of years, and then ultimately provost just prior to coming to UNA. And provost normally means you're the second in command, and that was a school over in North Carolina where I was provost for 4 years. But it was in 2010, I think. So I was getting later in my career, and I had the opportunity to go to Harvard for an intensive summer workshop, basically. And that focuses not on political science, or not even necessarily on higher education, but on leadership and administration. And it's designed for folks who are beginning to move into the upper ranks of administration. So the timing of that was good for me. It was obviously an amazing experience to be in Harvard for a few weeks and to study under some of the national leaders in that field.
Okay, so what is kind of one of the greatest accomplishments that you've had so far, either throughout your administration as president, or even before that, during your life?
Well, let me take a couple of different stabs at that. As proud as I am of what's going on here at UNA, it starts with being a well-grounded and happy and successful person, and I'm a blessed person. Dean and I have been married for almost 20 years. We have 2 wonderful, happy, healthy boys who are enjoying Alabama very much, and so having all of that in order sets the stage for a lot of professional success. At UNA, in the 5 years that I've been here, we have had a lot of success, and I always use that inclusive and plural we. By myself, I can't do anything, and I don't do anything. The most important thing that I do is I surround myself with talented people who have good values, and then I get out of the way, and I let them do what they do best, and they end up making me look very good in the process. And so that's what we've been about at UNA. But I think in a general sense, we've had a lot of individual successes and accomplishments, but I'm really proud that UNA, compared to where we were at in 2015, has acquired a greater degree of visibility. It's now more of a name, certainly in the state of Alabama, than it was 5 years ago, and I think that name and reputation is spreading across the Southeast and even nationally in many ways.
And so we have some questions from student leaders, but before we get into that, I kind of want to, like, what is one goal that you have for the future that you would like to see happen?
Well, this will be a theme that we'll come back to, I suspect, in the course of today's conversation. But certainly one of the things that I'm working on very hard during my time as presidency is to get us equality in funding. Mm-hmm. And I know that's not a very interesting topic, but it's a very important topic. There's 14 public universities in Alabama, and we're dead last in terms of how we are funded, and it's been that way for decades, if not the better part of a century. And we're having some success, but we need more, and I'm going to keep working on that. That will remain my overarching goal and priority number one. If we can get that one figured out, it's going to pave the way for additional options and opportunities for units like SOTA and any 10 others across campus.
Definitely.
I think that's a really good goal to have, just for and for those students that are listening in, that's important. So definitely we want to strive for that. So to get into some questions from the student leaders that we have, your wife is very, very devoted into the arts, and she's on several boards. So from Mackenzie Sanders, who is actually, she's over our student leaders. She's a senior in interior architecture and design from Athens, Alabama. She has a question: do you have a favorite type of art? And if so, what is it and why?
I love art. I would describe my taste as fairly eclectic, and I would be the first to admit that they're not terribly sophisticated. and I say that with a laugh and a smile, because I'm simply not a very talented person myself when it comes to art. But that doesn't mean that I don't have greatest respect and appreciation for those who are good at it. And in fact, I think it only enhances my respect and envy for those who are good at it. But I appreciate art to the best of my ability. I will tell you this, that when I moved here, no one had to tutor me on the rich artistic heritage of the Shoals of Alabama, even though I wasn't from this state or this region. I knew about that, and in large part it was because of the music of my youth. You know, I'm coming of age and an adolescent in kind of the 1970s and into the 1980s, and I had older siblings, so in large part I was listening to what they were listening to, and that was kind of that first heyday of the Muscle Shoals sound and Muscle Shoals music. And I like to tell the story that the first time I visited this area, before I'd been hired, and I rented a car in Huntsville and drove over, and I'm driving through Muscle Shoals. Never been here before. And I'm thinking, Muscle Shoals, where have I heard that, right? This small town. And then all of a sudden I said, of course, Muscle Shoals has got the Swampers. Yeah. And they've been known to pick a song or two, right? Yeah. So that was my introduction. But I appreciate the artistic heritage here in its broadest sense.
Mm-hmm. So Leonard Skinner definitely helped.
Yeah, I grew up with Southern rock, and I guess that's now become more Southern soul, and it's still, I guess, a genre that's near and dear to my heart. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So our next question is from Summer Hall. She is a senior here, and she's in the ceramics program, and she's from Florence. So she's actually got two questions that we have. So speaking from the perspective of a visual arts student, are there any plans in the future for building more relationships with other institutions, whether it be schools that offer Masters in Fine Arts programs or organizations offering internships or other things like that, that would allow students a smoother transition into their field after graduation?
Yeah. Well, the short answer is absolutely. We would be interested in all of the above, and I was especially glad that the way the question was asked picked up on internships, because it's vitally important to me, to my administrative team, to know that when students graduate from UNA, that we have them as well positioned as we possibly can for success after graduation. That has to be part of what UNA is about. So I think in terms of cultivating those great internship opportunities, that goes back to visibility, that organizations and private sector concerns and companies, they have to know the great stuff going on here, and they have to know the quality of our students. So we can't afford to be that little secret in the shoals anymore, and we're trying very hard not to be. And I think that as the word gets out, then folks are saying, gee, look at these amazing students, and wouldn't my company love to have access to some of those, even while they're still working.
Yes, and her second question was, do you see UNA offering a Master's of Fine Arts program anywhere in the near future?
Well, I think that's a great question. It's a wonderful degree. I understand the importance of that in arts education, and to a unit like SOTA. The development of any new degree program kind of bubbles up from the bottom. That's the best way that I can describe it, because I'm probably in the worst position on campus to sit over there in Bibb Graves Hall and say that we need an MFA degree or a master's engineering degree or any 10 degrees, in between. That's where we really rely on our department chairs, working with the faculty, working with the students. And then they in turn start working with the dean's office, and an idea begins to germinate, and all of a sudden I'm hearing a little bit more about it. And that's kind of the way that SOTA came into existence. It started with an idea, and I'm very proud that SOTA launched on my watch. That's part of that platform and visibility that we're talking about. We can't do everything at once and do it well. I understand that. And so in terms of prioritizing, if there's something we're going to work to and for in the next 2 to 3 years in SOTA, maybe a degree program like this, again, that's where I would want the deans and department chairs to come to me and say, of the various options out there, we think this one makes the most sense. And then there's a process you go through. You do a needs assessment to see what the local community and industry needs. You take some surveys to gauge student interest. And we would be very deliberative and methodical about that. And we've done that with the new degree programs that we've brought online during my time as president. And I'm really proud that they've been successful. And so we can absolutely have that discussion. But again, I would join that discussion fairly late in the game.
Our next question is from Kelly Willis. She's a double major. She's a junior in entertainment industry with a focus in tech and theater, which is a focus in acting, and she's from Muscle Shoals. Her question is, what do you envision for the cinematic art and theater department now that they're together? And what do you envision for that now that they are combined?
Well, I'm glad that they're together, and I think that speaks to the larger purpose of SOTA, which is to bring like-minded and related allied programs together to see what synergies exist, and then to serve as a better showcase for student talent and faculty achievements and all points in between. So I can only imagine that it's going to enhance our efforts in that field, and that would certainly be my expectation.
I know that one thing that we've at SOTA and also on the podcast have been talking about and being able to interview other people is with collaborations in throughout the arts. And I know that there are some new ones that are planning on happening. And so I think that with what you said, that it will enhance a lot about what art students get to participate in.
Definitely. So our next question is from Alexa Dishrun. She is a senior in music education, and she's from Higdon, Alabama. She kind of touches on what Summer asked as well. Looking toward the future, what new arts-related programs and or degrees do you foresee coming to UNA, mainly in the School of the Arts?
Well, I think that goes back to the discussion we had about the possibility of an MFA program. We're open to all options. Again, when you start with the lousy, can I say that, the lousy funding that we have, you have to be careful, and you have to be strategic about new programs that you bring on board. And another very important component of that is that we want to be true to the programs that are already here, and to make sure that they have the resources and the faculty lines that they need. That's very important. We want to make sure that the programs that are already in existence have the highest accreditation they can possibly have. And I think in the School of the Arts we have NASAD, which is a feather in our cap that we have that accreditation. And I know that Dr. Brown and others are looking to expand that portfolio of accreditations. And so that's when I talk about making sure that we're first taking care of what's here, that would be right at the top of the list. But then with the dollars that remain, where do we go with that? Again, that's where I need help, and that's where I sit down with my leadership team and the deans, and we say, okay, we can't do everything, but what can we do? And what would be our top priority? And then we go out and make it happen.
Yep, that's good.
That's
yeah.
really
So our last question from our SOTA leaders is from Benjamin South, who is an employee at the School of the Arts as well. He's a sophomore. He's a vocal, choral, music education major. He's from Marshall Shoals as well. So the last question is, do you think School of the Arts contributes to the UNA community and family?
Enormously so, yeah. And I would not have signed off on the idea and lent my support to it had I thought otherwise. But it's absolutely delivered in a big way for the university. It's been very important in terms of creating that additional appeal and visibility for UNA, and I'm very proud of the great work that the School of the Arts is doing for a regional university like UNA, and that's what we are. And I'm proud, of that label. But at the end of the day, if we do nothing else, we better do two things. We better educate our students to the best of our ability and take good care of our students. And the second thing is we better uplift our local communities, because we're much more tied to our local communities than a large flagship school. These are state schools, right? So their audience is the state, not a corner of the state. But we take that mission. We're this university that's located in the Shoals. We're somewhat for the Shoals, Northwest Alabama, and then Alabama, by extension. But we're going to improve the quality of life for this region of the state. And I can't think of anything more important in that than to increase artistic opportunities and showcases and venues. And School of the Arts is ground zero for those efforts.
Especially with the community we do live in, where arts is a huge thing as well, with galleries and community theater, and as well with music, and are tied to music.
It's an absolute natural fit, and I've made this point before, specifically with regard to music, but I think it applies to the arts generally. When you look across the state of Alabama, which region has the deepest heritage? It's here. It's in the Shoals, and so owning that artistic heritage and making it part of what the university is about, it's our geographic birthright here, and we've got to claim that.
And I know. I think we touched on this in our episode with G-Man as well, but around here at least, we have a significant absence of venues for things such as music around the Shoals area. And I think the School of the Arts is it'll help open that possibility up for more to open, because there's been a lot of people have tried to do that, and the venue on Mobile Street closed down recently. But I feel that once we get farther into, this is only our second year as, the School of the Arts. So I feel like as we progress, it'll be more available, and there'll be more people who are open to having that. And it'll help kind of shift the perspective of the community as well, which is really great.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's part of the vibe of UNA. It really is, and it needs to be part of our vibe here. And the building that we're meeting in today, that the university was able to purchase this, right? This is part of the move to the School of the Arts, and so now we have the recording studio and the main room that we own, and so that enters the discussion then about performance venues.
So now we want to open the floor to you. If you have anything that we haven't talked about that you want to touch on, or just any comments to any of the students that asked questions, or just anything that you have to say.
The students ask great questions, and I'm appreciative of those questions. I think it allowed me to get into most of the talking points and bragging points, quite honestly, that I use when I'm out giving public talks about the university. You guys have done a great job, and I very much appreciate the skill with the interview. I'm thrilled with the direction that this university is heading, and we're going to have some very, very good news to announce within the next week or two about our final enrollment numbers for this fall. And enrollment's not the only way that you gauge success, but it's always better to be growing than not. And we've passed a milestone this fall, and we're in record territory. And so I think that the School of the Arts, and again, the energy coming out of this sector, is a very important part of what's going on at the university.
We definitely want to thank you for coming and being a part of this. I know it's been a long awaited thing to have you on here. We tried last year, but I think our schedules just didn't line up very well. But it's an awesome thing that you came and was a part of this. So thank you very much.
My pleasure to be here. Happy to come back sometime too.
Yes.
We'll be sure 100%. To have you back.
Yeah, I know that we had this on the schedule for a while and was wanting to tell our audience that listens in, and we wanted to tell them so bad. We were like, okay, we gotta push it back. It's okay. We'll wait until we let the news know. We'll let the people know. Yeah, spread the news. That's what I'm gonna say. There you go. And so it's really nice to have you on the podcast to talk to the students as well, because I know that we watch videos that you've posted on the thing, or hear you speak at certain things, but to be able to talk directly to the students, because I know a lot of our listeners are students or people in the community as well. So we really, really appreciate you for coming.
Well, it's my pleasure.
I also want to thank all of student leaders who submitted their questions, because without those questions, this interview wouldn't have been possible, or it wouldn't have been as good, because those were some really good questions.
And came from you and what you feel as well, because we could come up with questions, but it wouldn't be targeted to certain things that you've experienced as well.
Right, and especially with a lot of these are targeted towards your specific majors, which is great, because that's what the student leaders are for. It's for their concerns and their majors. It's for students to be able to go to and talk to, and so they can bring it up so we can get those problems solved. So that's really good that our student leaders are actually able to output those concerns for their majors, which is really cool, especially with new degree programs that they're asking about, which is something that I would never personally think of by myself. So, but thank you guys a lot. It really, really helps. For those of you who aren't student leaders who are wondering, who have questions as well, you can submit those to us as well, and we'll ask them when we can as well, pertaining to the episode that we do, whichever. But we'll get them asked, even if we don't have an episode. We'll ask them, and we'll get your answer for you. But make sure you guys follow us on all of our social medias. Make sure you listen on Podbean or iTunes as well.
Check us out on YouTube. We're filming this episode as well, and it's at University of North Alabama School of the Arts.
Yes,
it's all written out. It's not UNA School of Arts, just
University
all of
it. North Alabama. Go follow all of UNA's accounts too. We have a lot of accounts here, and they're all they're all very active. And I've seen a lot of really cool posts come from a lot of them. So.
Yes, and if you go to our Instagram account, if I can speak today, and go at for the people we're following, a lot of the ones that we're talking about, we also do follow. Yes. So you can find them that way if you need to.
Yes, or just type in UNA or University of North Alabama.
And it'll come. There's a whole bunch of them that'll come up.
But thank you guys for listening so much. Thank you, President Kitts, again for coming.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And we'll see you guys in the next episode.
This podcast has been brought to you by UNA School of the Arts, produced by Mark Gallegos and Lainey Green. Special thanks to Monica Collier and the SOTA staff.